and the effectiveness is what I find lacking. I mean, who's really measuring the effectiveness of some of this? I mean, for instance, does a PR campaign telling people not to abuse their children, does a 30-second commercial on TV, is that really going to stop abuse? Or is it just a feel-good campaign? Some of the things we do make us feel good, but really don't make a difference. Is an abuser going to remember, oh, that commercial, I better not hit this kid? I think we really need to examine a lot of what we do, and maybe it worked 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but is that still the model that's going to work out? And is it good spending? And so I just kind of throw it out there. Are there ways that you're like really looking at some things that become so ingrained that we're not looking at them, and they really need to be looked at? And so kind of, is there a process in place, or I just kind of throw it out there.
So who's measuring effectiveness among the panelists here, and in a way that you think is effective, if at all? Okay, given that pause, I'll tell you what we're doing. How do you measure whether or not the opportunity cost of spending $1 to train a principal to be a more effective instructional leader is the best way to eliminate the achievement gap and the preparation gap? Now, how are you going to know? How long, how much money do you need for what kinds of activities, and how long should you take before you know whether you're getting the results or not? So if you go onto our website now, you'll see our attempt to measure our own effectiveness of our impact. And talk about a data gap, trying to find real data that's really used and usable for teachers and principals is a challenge, even though the DOE is awash in data. It's data for compliance largely. And so we have learned the hard way how hard it is for us to measure our own impact, but we felt like we owed it to both our founder and the folks that we support to find out whether we are at all effective. So we asked our grantees to work with us and a consultant to create 6 measures that mostly are quantitative right now, to see which ones work. And right now there's only 4 measures up there, because there's 2 that haven't yet been invented, and the 4 that are up there aren't perfect. But we had to start somewhere, and why should we force our grantees to start if we're not forcing any accountability on ourselves? So that's what we've done.
First of all, we've learned the hard way, because we fund everything from elderly care to early childhood education to the environment to medical research to scholarships in this community, that some things are easier to measure than others. So when I was with the Nature Conservancy for 18 years, we used a proxy that was called the number of acres that we saved. Well, that's pretty easy to measure. If you're a prevention group working on domestic violence or child abuse, it's much harder. So here's what we've done. The first thing we did was we understand now with great humility that we will never be able to say, because of the Hawaii Community Foundation, this happened. Okay? It just, $39 million sounds like a lot of money. Well, I'm going to tell you, it's not. And the reality is that in all likelihood, we have to humble ourselves to understand that we're never going to have that kind of impact. Now, I can tell you, in 2000, legislation was passed that used the tobacco settlement money to set up the Tobacco Trust Fund, and a program that we've run now for 7 or 8 years that looked at the whole realm, from social marketing to cessation, quit lying, to prevention programs with certain groups and everything else. And you know what's happened? Tobacco use has gone down. Now, would I love to say that's because of us? Sure, I would. But you know what? At the same time, the cost of cigarettes has tripled. So I'd like to say that kids don't smoke in high school now because we run these really great, we fund these really great prevention programs. We can't say that. We can say, we can look at a community condition and we can look at it and say, is it moving in the right direction? But we can never say that it was because of us. Okay? So if you say that, then how can we expect you to say that as a grantee? I don't think we can. So if you've watched the Community Foundation evolve over time, you'll see now that we're working more closely with cohorts or networks of organizations. We have a Youth Matters cohort of about 20 organizations that are working with adolescent at-risk kids. And the idea is for that group to become a learning network and share what's most effective as a strategy for that group. Are we going to now be able to say that 10% more kids are graduating from high school and going to college? No, we can't. And we can't say it's because of us. But the idea is to try to create a better learning environment for organizations to get better at what they do. But I don't think it's realistic for us to say to a grantee, tell us what you're doing and show us the impact you're making on a long-term basis, unless we do the things Melissa said and support this data infrastructure and this evaluation infrastructure that doesn't exist. We evaluate our programs, but we don't look at it from an impact basis. Right?